Well, let's get started. Wanted to take a moment and thank everyone for attending our webinar today. I'd like to take a moment to introduce Sue. She's the marketing manager for BMT, and I will hand the screen over to her so we can get this presentation started. Thank you very much. Sue, it's all yours.
Thank you, Gary. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sue Juder. I am the marketing specialist here at BMT. I wanted to welcome everyone and thank you for attending today's webinar, Secure Yourself, Simple Things That You Can Do to Protect Your Digital Life. So before we begin, let's review what we're going to cover today. First, I'm going to provide you a brief overview of our company and some more information on today's presenter. Then next, we'll talk about cyber breaches, and I'll give some recent examples. Then we'll discuss how you can better protect your digital life. We'll provide some simple tools and tricks which you can easily implement. Next, we'll provide our insight as to what we use for online security and give our recommendations. And then finally, we'll hold our Q&A session and wrap up, and we'll answer any questions that you may have. So, who is Business Machine Technologies? Well, we've been in the IT services industry for over 25 years. We were recently ranked #2 for cybersecurity in New Jersey by NJBiz and by the NJBiz readers. We are a current member of the Mahwah Chamber of Commerce. And we offer a range of services to include managed IT, data and infrastructure solutions, IT support, cloud services, IT security, and IT advisory and consulting. And here at BMT, customer service is very important, and it's at the forefront of everything that we do. So now a little bit about today's presenter. My colleague, Stu Smith, is the Vice President of Business Development here at BMT. He has been with the company for over 23 years. He is a former senior network engineer and our bona fide techie geek here at BMT. He's an IT advisor and account manager, and he is a certified information security manager, which is a top credential for those who develop, build, and manage enterprise information security programs. So with that, we are going to start the presentation, and I'm going to hand the deck over to my colleague, Stu.
Thank you, Sue. I want to welcome everyone today. You should know you're taking the first step in making your online life not only more secure, but in many ways more convenient. Since you're with us, you probably have a feeling that your presence online isn't as safe as it used to be. We are going to take the next couple of slides to drive that point home. You can't visit a technology section of a news website and not find an article on a cyber threat. In 2016, companies were rocked by over 90 million cyber attacks. Experts predict this year that number could easily double. Nearly 50% of organizations have been hit with ransomware. Nearly half of all cyber attacks are committed against small businesses. We find most people, including small business owners, feel that they are flying under the radar. The truth is, it's a numbers game. Bad guys are leveraging technology to attack as many people as possible and catch whoever they can. As reported earlier in August, Verizon had 6 million customer records breached. This happened through an unsecured Amazon S3 storage server controlled by a contractor. This shows there are a lot of moving parts behind the scenes, and unfortunately, security is usually looked on as someone else's responsibility. And of course, in September, we all heard about Equifax and also the recent revelation that all of the accounts in the 2013 Yahoo breach were compromised. So if you had a Yahoo username and password and you're still using that, the hackers definitely know about it. And if that password is used for any other accounts you have, they know about it. Next, let's consider some more personal examples. As an IT service company with a focus on cybersecurity, we have examples for all of the next bullets. Many of our current clients have come to us looking to put these events behind them for good. A couple of times a year, I'll see someone on my Facebook feed saying, "I've been hacked, ignore any messages from me." Or you get an email from a parent from one of your sons or daughter's sports teams saying the same. Maybe you or a friend were browsing the internet and all of a sudden a full screen message pops up from the FBI asking you to call a number to avoid prosecution. Our CFO got an email from our president about wiring money. Looking closer at the sender's email address, it showed it wasn't from our president. His email address was spoofed. Considering that statistically a company is hit with ransomware every 40 seconds, it isn't surprising we've helped several clients deal with ransomware this year. Maybe you lost a laptop or a phone with sensitive data stored in email or on the hard drive itself. And earlier this year, we learned of an HR director emailing hundreds of Social Security numbers to who they thought was their healthcare broker. Let's consider a specific client example. In this case, our client's biggest account was hacked through a phishing attack. This attack continued by the hackers emailing everyone in their address book, including our client. The email said, "You have secure documents waiting. Click here." Upon clicking, you were taken to a site that looked exactly like an Office 365 login. At that point, our client's CEO gave the hackers his email address and password. Immediately, the hackers set up Outlook rules on our client's mailbox. Any email with the words charge codes or wire were immediately moved to deleted items. Here, the hacker screened them and put them back in the inbox when done, thereby keeping our client in the dark. In about 5 days, they had what they needed to craft an email from the CEO to the CFO with what looked exactly like any other funds transfer request. 2 emails like this were sent, and as a result, 2 wires were performed, totaling over $1 million. Because the money was transferred to China overseas, the first wire was not able to be recovered. It took weeks of working with the bank, the FBI, their insurance provider, from basically sunup to sundown. This included several conference calls with our client and their account doing due diligence on exactly what transpired between the businesses, which is not the type of interactions you want to have with your biggest account. And here at BMT, we joke, it's not the World Wide Web, it's now the Wild Wild Web. Which brings us to our next topic, protecting your digital life, passwords, two-factor authentication, and biometrics. Starting with passwords. In 2016, Keeper Security looked at 10 million passwords stolen in data breaches, and 1.7 million of them were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We hope if you do one thing after our webinar, it would be to stop using commonly used passwords, which are obviously very weak and has what is known as low entropy. What is password entropy? Computer scientists define password entropy as a measurement of how unpredictable a password is. It equals password strength, basically. Entropy is measured logarithmically with a base of 2, which basically means that every bit of entropy you add doubles the amount of guesses it will take to crack the password, which makes the attacker's task twice as difficult. Next, we'll look at the common password do's and don'ts and the challenge they present. Starting with passwords. In 2016, Password don'ts. Don't use your login name anywhere in the password or a sequence of repeated characters. Don't reuse them for different accounts. We talked about that earlier with regards to if your Yahoo password is used anywhere else. Once a data breach happens, it can be used to hack your other accounts. You shouldn't share passwords with anyone. Once you share, passwords are supposed to be secret. Once you share, it's no longer a secret. And don't store contacts in your email or in a spreadsheet called passwords.xlf. So what should you do? Here are the standard recommendations that generate high password entropy. Think length, 12 or more characters. Yep, that's gone up in recent times. We used to say 8 or more, but now we're up to 12. Complexity, interspersed punctuation marks or symbols. Layer it up and add protection with two-factor or biometrics. We'll talk about these in more depth as we go along. Following these rules presents a challenge. The average person has 23 online accounts. 23 complex and unique passwords that you've committed to memory? I mean, that's pretty impossible. Unless you're the amazing Kreskin or Rain Man, we need help. The term is a little dated, but there's an app for that. Yes, help arrives in the form of a password manager. A password manager is a tool, commonly a browser add-in, that helps you manage your online passwords. A password manager will become your digital assistant. You'll wonder how you got along without one. Let's look at some of the features and benefits they provide. A password manager will capture and store your online account names and passwords as you log in. Many browsers offer this natively, but their methodology has been proven at times to be insecure. The browser programmers are also coding for speed and features for market share. Too often, security doesn't get the attention it deserves. A password manager does one thing. Their focus is on keeping your password secure. A password manager automatically replays your password on next login. All you have to do here is click the login button as the username and password has been filled out. There is even an option to automatically log you in as soon as you're at the site. For low-value accounts, you may want to turn this on. For sensitive accounts, you may want to check your surroundings first. You can use a password manager to generate other complex passwords that you would copy and paste when signing into a new site or changing your passwords at existing sites. As you can see in the sample password vault above, there are over 23 accounts managed by our password manager. They all have unique and strong passwords. The vault is stored securely in the cloud and syncs to each PC you open the password manager on. Most password managers also sync to an app on your phone or tablet and bring the same convenience there. You can also use a password manager to store secure notes. Some examples here are family health history, children's social security numbers, and if you're like me, the combination to the bike lock you use once a year on vacation. Originally, I started using a password manager to secure my accounts. Now with the auto login feature, I find I primarily enjoy the speed and ease at which I can access these accounts. No longer am I stopped in the middle of my workflow to start a password reset process by waiting for an email link or trying to answer the 3 security questions I set up years ago. Now let's look at the hidden benefit of using a password manager, one that could have saved hundreds of thousands of dollars. Let's say you fall prey to a phishing attack and click a link to urgently directing you to change your banking password due to a data breach. The hackers are getting smart. This may even happen around an actual event, like the Equifax breach. It brings you to this website that looks exactly like your bank. But wait, your password manager hasn't done its job by filling in the online ID and passcode. What gives? Well, if you look closer at the URL, Bank of America is 2 eyes, and this identifies that website as a fake website. So the password manager would have given you time to think and realize you were attempt to hack you was being made. But wait, all my eggs are in one basket. It might be a concern. It was mine when I first looked at password managers. But there are several features that work to keep it safe. Your vault is protected online with encryption. Your master password decrypts the vault. If hackers break into the online service, they can't read your vault without your master password. Here is where password entropy is important. You want to use a strong password to protect your vault. You can also protect it with location awareness. Location awareness, when turned on, prompts you to confirm each time you log in from a new computer by clicking on a link that is sent to your associated email address. So if in the middle of the day you get an email saying approve this login, you would know someone is trying to get into your account. You'll also want to use two-factor authentication, which we will get into a little bit later. And finally, since you now have one master password to protect all the rest of your passwords, we want to introduce you to the concept of a passphrase. I apologize for the engineer humor here, but this comic makes a great case for using a passphrase instead of a complex password. In the first three panels, we see the password Troubadour N3 has 28 bits of entropy. This is easy work for a computer. A computer guessing 1,000 times a second would take 3 days to crack this password. Just by looking at it, we can tell the password's hard to remember. Alternatively, a passphrase like correct horse battery staple has 44 bits of entropy. It would take the same computer 550 years to crack this password. Yet, it is much easier for us to remember. And here's the punchline. Through 20 years of effort, we've successfully trained everyone to use passwords that are hard for humans to remember, but easy for computers to guess. How do you create strong passphrases? It's important they're random because if you use commonly known phrases like, oh, say, can you see, or my birthday is in October, you drastically lower the entropy of your password. So, how do you roll them? You roll dice for truly random passwords. Diceware passphrases are created by rolling a 6-sided die 5 times to generate a 5-digit number. The 5-digit number corresponds to a word from a predefined Diceware word list. What you're doing here is generating entropy, extracting true randomness from nature and turning it into numbers and finally words. For example, rolling 5 ones will give you abacus as a word. If you rolled 41112, your second word would be matador, and so on. The author of our comic gave an example of a computer guessing 1,000 times per second to make his point. Security experts suggest in the near future, computers will be able to make 1 trillion guesses per second. Having strong entropy will become more important as time goes on. Next, we'll talk about several ways to generate strong Diceware passphrases. You can use an online passphrase generator, and we'll include a link to one of those at the end of our presentation. You can roll your own. Go dig out the Yahtzee game from the cabinet and roll your own using a list that we'll also reference at the end of the presentation. Believe it or not, you can hire an entrepreneurial 11-year-old from Queens who sells them for $2 a phrase. Basically, you send her $2 with PayPal, she rolls you a passphrase and puts it in the mail. And finally, let BMT come out, we'll throw a Diceware party. We'll come out with our special BMT dice and help your team roll Diceware passphrases. I have to tell you, people say we roll the best high-quality Diceware passphrases. On to two-factor authentication, which is something that you want to employ as well. And if you've been paying attention to the news lately, all the recommendations for What to do after you've been hacked is turn on two-factor authentication wherever you can. But what is two-factor authentication? Two-factor authentication requires 2 of the 3 types of credentials before being able to access an account. The most common form of two factors are something you know and something you have. While this may seem like a new concept to people, we've been using two-factor authentication since the 90s. To get money out of an ATM, you use two-factor authentication. You know the PIN and you have the card. In today's digital world, the most popular type of second factor is an authenticator app on the phone. When you log into your account, the phone prompts you to approve that login. The third factor is something you are, which is the field of biometrics. Services that have added two-factor authentication capabilities, some call it two-step verification, in the past year include Google, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Microsoft, Apple, and any program that you use. Before we wrap up, let's look at the third factor more closely, something that you are. Biometric identification systems is the biometric recognition of people through comparisons with multiple data sets. What that means is, if you've ever turned on the logging in with a fingerprint on your phone or tablet, they have you do it several times, right? They store all of those scans to compare it with the next scan that you provide. And then that gets added, and I think the latest one falls off. So that as you go along, you're kind of keeping a running tally of what your fingerprint looks like. As I just mentioned, on a new smartphone, you can use your fingerprint to sign into the devices and the apps. Facial recognition is on the Samsung S8, although it's been shown to be hackable with a picture. And it is now a confirmed feature on the iPhone X. Voice analysis is currently being deployed by TD Bank. And a $60 fingerprint scanner brings the same convenience to your PC login the password manager brings to your browser. You can now change to a strong password or even a passphrase on your PC, which you would still use for remote access, but when you're in a trusted environment like the office, you can swipe your finger to sign in. And that brings us to our best practices and recommendations. If you're not using one yet, it's time. In 2017, use a password manager to cut down on the passwords that you memorize and increase the security of them. And we provide a link here, and I think at the end as well, to a review of the best password managers of 2017. When filling your password manager vault, take your time. Add a couple of accounts a day. When done, you can delete your unsecured list. Go back and strengthen the passwords of your sensitive accounts. Or if you're really concerned, strengthen them as you add them. Consider your primary email account the most sensitive, as the password reset process for all your other accounts and the location awareness security feature use this account. Enable both location awareness and two-factor authentication wherever you can, especially for your password manager and primary email account. If not using a password manager, use the native two-factor authentication offered by the website. Instead of complex passwords, protect accounts you need to memorize with a Diceware passphrase. Don't pick random words from the list. For high entropy, we suggest rolling the dice. For sensitive accounts, use at least 6 words. As we mentioned, computers are getting more and more powerful, and some are even saying use 7 now. So I would recommend going to 7 words and adding a special character in there somewhere to further increase its entropy. Go ahead and write your passphrase down and keep it securely with your driver's license and credit cards. And I'm sure in less than 2 weeks, if you've used it enough, every day at least, you'll memorize it and then can destroy it or store it in a safe place. And finally, use a fingerprint scanner to simultaneously increase the complexity of your PC login and also making it easier to log in. And that wraps it up.
Thanks, Stu.
You bet.
Thank you.
So what I'd like to do is, excuse me, just clear my throat here. So I wanted to again thank our sponsor, R&D Legal Bookkeeping. And I wanted to go into our Q&A session. Does anyone have any questions for Stu on this? I know I have a question.
Yeah.
So Stu, what about the password managers that are included in Windows or on the Apple or in like Safari or?
Yeah, Google will offer to, they'll all offer to save the password for you. And I would recommend not using those. Just last year, it was shown that remotely hackers could break into the password vault that the Google Chrome browser kept. And Google quickly released a patch for it, but those also don't, I mean, if all you use is the Chrome browser, that's fine, but it doesn't really sync well with a mobile device. And it doesn't provide some of the features that Password Manager also does, like two-factor authentication to get access to that list. So for those reasons, I recommend not using the browser, the built-in browser password managers, and getting a purpose-built password manager, which is going to be much more secure.
Okay.
If cost is a concern, we provide the list because there's certain password managers that work better than others depending on your platform, for example, a Mac. But the LastPass password manager, that's what I took screenshots of, that is free. And the synchronization to a mobile device is included as part of the free service, as well as two-factor authentication options. So
okay.
Cost shouldn't be a concern either. You can use LastPass to do that.
All right. So Donna had a question.
Yeah.
She's asking, is there a way to check your email and browser to find out if there has been a breach?
If your account has been breached, there are some websites that you can put your password into and see if it's in a database of passwords that have been breached. I typically would shy away from something like that. If it hasn't been breached, I'm not really sure who you're giving your password over to. They promise not to log that information, but I'd be worried about it. I hope that answers your question.
Okay. Yes, she says. No, I just thought of a question and I forgot. Oh, is there a best practice for how often you should change your password?
Yeah, that's
kind of in line with what Donna was asking.
Right. Certainly after hearing about a breach, you'd want to kind of do that immediately. But the opinion on this has actually changed. many corporations for years kind of enforced this 45-day rules. Every 45 days you had to forced to change your password. And it made sense for larger organizations because with their high turnover, it was kind of a last mechanism. If someone had left the organization, this would catch them. They wouldn't have an opportunity to change their password so that their account would get locked out. But in recent years, the opinion in the security community has been, let's not make it so difficult by changing passwords all the time or even every 45 days. What's much more important is having a long, think length password, and not sharing it, not using it in other places. And in that case, as long as you haven't shared it, you haven't given it away to anybody, you can keep that password indefinitely. That's much more secure than forcing people to change it and then implement poor password management practices like writing it down and keeping it somewhere unsecure because they're forced to have to remember it all the time.
All right. Do you have a list of any of these things, like quick references or best practices or anything like that?
Well, we do have that list at the end of our presentation. Yep.
Is that what you're referring to, Gary?
But yeah, not a list.
Yep. Yep. That's what I was.
But also, if anybody wants a copy of our presentation, we'll be happy to send that along. Kind of our best practice recommendations. The last two slides kind of serves as our list of recommendations.
Thank you, Stu.
Great. It's been our pleasure.
Hopefully everyone paid attention and we can worry about these cyber threats going forward.
Right. Yep. You'll be in a lot better position if you have a password manager and you strengthen your password.
All right. Thanks again for attending.
Yep.
Yep. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.